Oh no! My sprites are so big, so they are lagging all too much. What can I do? Okay. This was fake lag, and I'll just delete this. It's not any code you need to use. I will leave the script in to talk about in the end of this video, but it had nothing to do with the video at all. Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about how I create my sprites, and in extension of that I'm going to talk about how you can use spine animation software together with GameMaker, so you can get rid of too many frame sprites like this, like 60 frames per animation in big sprites and stuff like that. How to get rid of that and do something way simpler. So let's get started from the start, where I begin forging my sprites in Photoshop. And I'm not gonna go to detail how I draw them, because I draw them differently depending on what game I'm creating and stuff like that. But if you have the latest Photoshop CC edition, you have this functionality where you can export parts of the image as images. So you can see in my folder structure over here, we have a lot of different folders, and every one of them ends with .png, and that's part of the procedure. Every part of these are one body part I want to save as a image by itself. And then up in the corner up here I have this generate, and I've taken image assets, so now it will generate the images as individual files. And these files, if we have our Photoshop file here, will be saved in a folder called the same as a file with the extension -assets. And then we have all the different images we have. And that's they didn't make it for Spine, but it was like while Spine was coming out, this feature came out, and they just go perfectly hand in hand. Because then we can just have our Spine file in the same folder, and everything is gathered, and we can drag in the images from here. So let's go to Spine. In Spine you will see that I use version 1.8 and not the newest version, and that's because the GameMaker is not updated to use meshing and stuff like that. Some of the newer features in Spine, so we cannot use them when we're doing this. But Spine is pretty simple tool. You have this skeleton you build up, that's those pins we have here, and then you attach images. So for example, if we want, we have this we have the head here. You can see the head is missing. We go to the images here, ninja assets, that was what the folder was called, and then we pull in the head up here, boom, we'll call it head, boom, perfect, wowza. And we just want to move the head into space here, bam. And well, of course I have animated this already, didn't want to make everything from the ground up. But the cool thing about Spine is you can have these body parts and they will then move, and when Spine is saving it, it will save sort of a sheet over where which body part is in this animation at this position. Making sure that everything is smooth and works out, and this takes up less space than having a lot of big sprites, because every animation and everything you need is put into one file, or 3 files, but one sprite in GameMaker, and I'll come back to that in a moment. And then we have this extra cool thing that in GameMaker you can attach your own sprites to the skeleton as well, making like weapons and stuff like that, or you can have like parts in here where you can turn them off and on, and for example, and we will come back to that in a moment as well, you will see that under cape here, cape, boom, we have 4 different capes we can toggle between, some different colors, bam, we'll just take the standard purple right now, and we can use those. And also we have skins, and what these do, this is a pretty basic example I've made. But you can have, for every skin you can have one head, one of each body part, so you can have one unique figure, and then you can just switch between the skins, and you can do that in GameMaker as well. So if you want a multi-skinned person, or if you want, like, you have this villager and he will walk around, but he can have different skins so that it will look like there's kinds of people. Then you can simply just select the random skin in GameMaker and that will work. But that's what I've laid out for you, and then you can go in and animate it, and it animates to keyframes you can place down here, and you can animate each thing. So if we just loop this and say, then we have 2 animations. We have the idle animation here where he just stands and breathe, and then we have the walk animation here where he just walks slowly forward, having his cape dangling behind him. So yeah, that's Spine for you. And what I have done in Let's Go Far and Hey Go Far, sorry, and other games, my tutorial series on platformer games as well, I have simply exported, been save, export, and then I have used PNG and saved this as a lot of images. But what you can do in Spine is that you can export, then save as a JSON here. We want to create an atlas as well, and we want to save it in our desktop in a sprite folder here. We select that one and export. And what this gives us is 3 files. We have the skeleton JSON, we have the atlas, and we have the skeleton. And the skeleton is simply a sheet with all the different body parts we had and use. You can see we have only 1 cape, but that's because the cape's differences I made was recolorings of this cape, whereas this was a sprite for itself. But yeah. And then we have the atlas, which tells the JSON here which part needs to be where and how they're rotated. You can see the head is tilted on the side and stuff like that. So it will tell how these things are set up. And then we have a JSON with all the animation information and stuff like that. So back in GameMaker, we can now replace our sprite player sprite here with the JSON. Boom, it will load in. And now you can see you cannot select your own origins now, because these will be simply as they were in Spine, which was placed at the foot as we wanted to. So it's very important you remember that when you are creating this. But you'll then see that when we launch the game again, that the sprite is still following the same animation and everything is as it should be, except of course that it does not have a stomach. And I may ask why it doesn't have a stomach, because we had a stomach in animation, but that was the skin thing I told you about. We need to add a skin to this. So we say skeleton. I've prepared some other things here, but we want to skin set. And if we go back to the Spine file, you can see that our standard skin is just called standard and our alternative skin is called weird. So we'll just use our standard skin, so that we need to, so that is what we will need to write into GameMaker. Right here, so we'll say standard, boom boom, and now it should have selected that skin for our character. And the stomach is in place now. So just as easily, now you can just have write the weird one here if you want the pink body instead, or the whole alternative skin. It could be a whole other character if you wanted to. It doesn't need to be. The only thing is it follows the same skeleton. But now he is this type. And as I said, both animations, both the idle animation and our walk animation is inside the same sprite now. So we cannot do like we did before and say using normal sprites, we cannot say sprite index equals sprite player walk now. That doesn't work. Instead we need to change the what animation we are using in the sprite. So I have prepared some code here, and this simply checks if keyboard key right is the right arrow key is pressed, and if so, it will get the current animation. If it's not already the walk animation, then it will set it to walk. And the same, if it's not pressed, then it will get, if it's idle animation, if not already idle, then it will set the animation to idle. And that's simply skeleton animation set idle. And idle is just what you call the animation in Spine. So that's pretty easy. and you can always just have your spine animations thing open. I will try to have both the Photoshop file, the spine file, and the GameMaker file in a zip together for you when I'm uploading this in the description. And yeah, now we should be able to change our sprite, or at least our animation. So now I press, boom, he walks, stop, walk, stop, walk, stop. But it's a little jacked. He like jumps to out of positions right from the get-go here, and it just doesn't look that good. So what we can do in Spine, because Spine is so cool, is we can mix the animations. And that's done using these skeleton animation mix things. And in this case we need two. We need one mix when it goes from idle to walk, and we need one when it goes to from walk to idle. And the last factor here is the duration, how much the animation should go from one to the other. In the first one here we have set it to 0.3 because that's a value I found. It's something you need to try around, use to see what works best. But 0.3 because then it's more idle and then goes faster to walk in the end, where walk to idle it will start with less walk and go slower to idle in the end. And now if we just try again, you'll see that the transition between the two animations is way smoother. And that's the power of Spine. You can make the animations way smoother. And it looks nice and it's good. Now we have a problem. We cannot see our whole character right now. And the good thing about the Spine animations is that the old functions works as well. You can set the image angle to rotate it, or you can set image X scale and Y scale. If we set it to -0.5 to flip it, and image, equal, and image Y scale we will just set to 0.5, and then we will have our sprite, and he is flipped and everything is cool. And of course we can then place him another place in the room because we want him to be a little more centered. So around here, and he should be pretty much in center of the screen. And that's it. Now we have our character. He is facing left, as we want him to in this case, and he is cool animated and he can walk. Still pressing right, it's a little weird because he's turning the other way, but you can see the animation stops, the leg stops, goes back to the position smoothly, and depending on the frame. So of course there are some places where it will look a little weird because he is starting a cycle or something, but it's way smoother than just having the animation as it was. Now in Spine you also have the opportunity to use bounding boxes. So if you make this visible, you can see I have created a bounding box around the character, sort of taking the whole character into a simple shape. You can also make a lot of smaller bounding boxes if you want. And in GameMaker you have the opportunity to use either precise collision checking, to use pixel perfect as standard GameMaker, or you have the opportunity to use the bounding boxes you have created. So that's what you can do in here. Now, as I said earlier, some of the cool things you can do with Spine is also to change the cape and stuff like that. You can either use the capes you have already created in Spine, or if you have, like in my case here, this extra cape, you can see I've set up a green cape, then you can use that as well. And what you do there is you simply say skeleton attachment create to create a new attachment for your thing, and you just say K2 in this case. You create it from a sprite, the 0 index. You set the offset to, in this case I just use sprite get offset to set it to whatever I set it to in the image editor in there, and the same Y offset. Scale 1 and 1, and rotation 270 because that's the standard rotation for the cape in my Spine file. And you can just go to the Spine, press the cape, and you can see the rotation down here in rotate. So it's pretty simple to set up, and you know exactly what the offset is and stuff like that. And then you set skeleton attachment set. We wanted to set us on our cape slot, on our cape position in our Spine, and we want to use cape 2. And then we have switched our cape out, and it would seem that this gives some trouble with the image X scale. I didn't anticipate that to happen actually. I think most of the problem is because of the X scale and Y scale. So I think if we just start at 1, I think it seems okay. What I think is going on here, and if in that case, I will show you in a moment, is it takes the cape onto the sprite where it is transformed as it is. So if we start off having at 1:1 right now here, then it should work with no problem. The standard image X scale and Y scale, and then yeah, a little off, but it fits better. And that's probably just because I've set the offset wrong. That's just me. But then maybe if we set the X scale after the attachment is created, and we will try actually also saying minus here just to see if it flips with it, or else there's some annoyance here in GameMaker and we don't want that. Yeah, then it flips with it and resizes with it. So you need to set this as it is scaled, or set the attributes here. You can say 0.5 and 0.5 here as well, and that should work as well. I'm sorry about this little weird thing, but that came back. It surprised me a little, but it works now, and this is how it works. And of course you can do other things. You can set it to other attachments in your sprite. You can say we had the cape 1, cape 2, cape 3, cape 4, and we just overridden the cape 2. We can take a cape 3 now. I should change it to something else. Boom, 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 boom. Yep, we have the next cape here. So you can have it, either you can load in the sprites from your GameMaker project, or you can update your spine project and have the sprites there. Personally, I would probably have them outside of GameMaker, but you can make it like you can customize your own cape or something like that, and then you could have it in GameMaker, and that's when this could be very good to have. But this is how it works, and that's how cool it is, and that's pretty much all of it. I'm not gonna go in depth with anything more than that. There's one thing, however, because like Sprite, you can draw a individual frame from the animation. If you go to the draw event, draw, you can say draw skeleton, I think, here, and it works a lot like the draw sprite extended. You have the sprite player, boom, animation name, we just want stand, and skin name, standard, and here you can then have the everything you want. We want frame 30, and we just want it drawn at X and Y, X scale 0.5, Y scale 0.5, rotation, why not, -90, and image blend C red, and image alpha 0.5. This should show how things works as well in Spine here, because now it draws this specific frame instead of the animation, and it draws it rotated and everything. You can see, because everything is created from parts, every part will be made transparent when you set the alpha, thus you can see through to the other parts. That's something you need to have in mind if you're using transparency using these sprites, kind of sprite. The other thing is, this is a slow way to draw it, because it needs to calculate for every time you draw it like this. So you really shouldn't use it unless it's very necessary. I would probably only use it if I need to draw a surface or something like that, or else I'll just have it to draw the players, the objects sprite as it is. Because every time you need to draw a spine animation, it needs to calculate positions and stuff like that for the position where in the animation it is and stuff like that, which takes some power. So be careful with using this draw event or draw function. But that was everything for how I create my sprites and how I animate them and stuff like that, very loosely, and the spine integration. I cannot really go in depth with tutorials on how to animate or how to draw, because there's no how-to. There is some tips and tricks you can give, and but there's, you animate it so it looks natural or however you want it to look, and you draw it so it fits your game style. So that's how that is. The last thing I want to talk about was this lag script. In GameMaker Studio, the sleep function has been removed, where it makes the game pause completely, making it lag stop. And there's a reason for that, and you really shouldn't use this function at all, but now I'm showing it to you anyway. For example, if you're using Windows, Windows will think that your game has stopped working if you have a too long sleep. I couldn't call it sleep because the name is still used in the system as an obsolete function, but still. So I've created this here again, and what it does is it gets the current time, and then it checks towards how many milliseconds you wanted it to do, and only when this time has passed, it will stop this while loop it creates, but nothing will happen in it. And that's what I used to create the force lag in the start. I made some random sleeps or lags in this case to imitate lag. So you can make this sleep function, lag function, if you want to. It can be usable in some cases, but again, I really have to warn you about using it unless you really know what you're doing, because often it can mess up how your game works and stuff like that, and you don't want that. So yeah, I've been Simon, and this was a small spine tutorial in GameMaker. I hope you've enjoyed. We'll see you in the next video. Bye! Whoa, you seem to be at the end of the video. If you liked this video, or even if you didn't, it would make me incredibly happy if you would just rate it. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Bye!